This week's episode of Shower Thoughts is sponsored by Mint Mobile. You know what doesn't belong in your epic summer plans? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. That's why I made the switch to Mint Mobile. And for a limited time, Mint Mobile is offering 3 months of unlimited premium wireless service for $15 a month on the nation's largest 5G network. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of unlimited service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. You know why I switched to Mint Mobile? Because my old service provider, the data, I could not use apps. I could not upload anything because when you're an influencer, you really do need the data to work. And so that's why I switched to Mint Mobile. I really appreciate it, really streamlined it, very easy to use. Love it. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/shower. That's mintmobile.com/shower. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35G on unlimited plan, taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Hi guys, my name is Sarah Schauer, and this is Shower Thoughts, a podcast for left and right brainers, middle brainers, anyone with a nervous system, central or peripheral, anyone with any nerves, working or offline. You know, I think there's some numbness in like my toe, but I think it's because I think I might have broken my toe like a couple weeks back, and then I walked on it and it didn't heal. You know when I was trying to get up and then I kicked the coffee table and then I was like, oh that hurts, and then the toe was completely blue. No, not blue, it's purple. And I was like, that doesn't look good. And now it's just kind of, it doesn't look weird, but it's, yeah. So yeah, anyone with nerves, this is going to be a continuation of how to build trust. Now the first part was self-trust, setting that up, how to measure, setting up measurements, because the thing is trust is a quality, and so you do need to be able to measure the quality. However, trust is more of it's a subjective, like emotional, intuitive sort of quality, so, you just have to kind of, anyway. We're going to get into how to build trust with others, as you're establishing self-trust. The first part of that is just, what is defined as self. And I did suggest measuring self in third person as opposed to a third person perspective, which is detached observation, not to stay there, but to assess, right? Because if you assess self in first person, it's kind of like measuring your yard from the center. And then you're kind of eyeing, how far things away are. But if you look at yourself, kind of walk the perimeter in third, it's more expansive and allows more things to be included or considered, especially if you're disabled and you have care workers or, assisted devices, that is an extension of self. Or if you're, from a collectivist culture or any culture that emphasizes connection to land or other as an extension or inclusion of self, then it's good to look in third person just so you can walk all the way around and see what, you defined as self, and then you build trust up from there, considering conditions of like the soil. My ecology people, they were really happy. They were like, hell yeah. There was also some city planners who were like, I like that. I'm keeping that. And it was so nice to read. But we're going to talk about building trust between others. And I did discover something eye-opening when I was putting all this together, because I do like to do, analogies and reframes. And in my own reframe, I think I might have been able to outline a different chronic illness. And I know that it's been recognized in different communities already, but I kind of would like to propose it in my own sort of way that it's a theory, right? And I will present it and you guys can review it. Every resource will be linked. So yeah, we're going to talk about how to build trust. How's my week going though? This is Shower Thoughts. We've got to warm up. My week has been going great. A lot of gay things happening. Absolutely loving all the gay things that are happening. There are some like professional things that are hurting, but the gay things are just, when you find someone who really likes you, and I know that she's probably going to listen to this and she's going to be like, oh my God. And I'll be like, oh my God, stop. Anyway, gay stuff is fun and cool. What else has been going on? Just the cats. I don't know. I can't really think about much else. It's just been going so well. And you guys have been so cool. I did publish this Substack recently on how to start getting into research as a hobby, because I love researching. Someone did ask me recently, this was insulting, but I mean, I think they didn't know me that well. They were like, do you use AI in any part of your research? And I was like, no, I don't. That's actually so interesting that you say that to me, considering so I just like, every single book is annotated heavily. I have notes for every single book. I've got an entire, like, my Scientific American account is just a shit ton of articles. National Institute of Health, so many articles. Like, there's like, and also the thing is if I were to use AI for this, I really wouldn't need to, because I've got both levels covered. I can do the research myself and I enjoy it. And that's the part that I was missing, learning and growing when I was drunk. So for me to then offload that work again just wouldn't make any logical sense. And then when it comes to putting points together, I'm a comedian, so I can kind of string them together and like give it a presentation, a creative presentation. So I really don't need to. I've got the skills for that. I think I would actually regress if I started using AI. That's not to say that AI is not like incredibly smart, because it's, crowdsourced from a bunch of smart people, or it's like a stealing of work. But I'm saying if I were to personally implement it in my life with the skills I've developed and the kind of purpose and intention I have, it would be a massive skill regression for me. Anywho, so yeah, I do not use AI. I was kind of insulted when someone asked. But it's whatever. It's neither here nor there. It's here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did post a Substack on how to get into research as a hobby. The thing is a lot of people want to learn, but they have so much trauma with the school system, which is completely understandable. However, there's like a reframe how you need to think about learning in a school environment, right? That was through the lens of work, okay, which is a need. Now, when it comes to research as a hobby, right, this is not through the lens of need. This is through the lens of want. So it's going to be a desire conversation. And so the thing is if you have trauma associated with reading and learning, right, and that is so valid, you need to kind of fall in love with learning and researching first. And so you put it through the lens of desire. So a lot of people ask, like, how do I start falling in love with reading? And I said, well, this is a desire conversation, so you need to tempt yourself first. If you have the books, right, collect, pens and highlighters and note cards and stationery, put them all on the table, a nice clean table, like maybe open the window and set the scene, right? You need to tempt yourself with, I guess, make it aesthetically pleasing. Because the thing is this is about desire and this is about expression. You are taking in information, but I could talk about, on the art and craft of doing science, which is a really great book, or Research is Ceremony. You have to... There's a ritual aspect of it. There's a collecting aspect of it. It is about you are intaking information, but you're using it to learn and grow and express yourself, since it is in the form of a hobby. So set the scene with the table, right? And tempt yourself. What I like to do is in the afternoon, I usually research in the morning, but in the afternoon, if I want to research, it's more about desire at that point. So I'll set up everything on the table, and then I'll play Etta James on my record player next to an open window, have candles lit out of the way of like books and everything. And I won't sit down immediately. I'll just walk by it and kind of make eyes with the table. And the thing is when it comes to, it's similar to like making eyes at like a crush, it's tempting and you want to know more, right? If you were to not really care about aesthetics, approach it through the lens of need, it would be like kind of like, oh, I have to love someone. It becomes like an obligation, and you kind of treat learning like you would treat a child you didn't want. I have to take care of this. I have to think about it. I have to care about it. But if you think about it in terms of like, this is desire, tempt yourself with the table. And then you can also use another, so then I'll sit down and be like, ooh, because when you start to fall in love with something, you give yourself like a enemies to lovers arc with learning. It was your enemy initially, you avoid it, but then you give it like a sort of aesthetic context. There's no pressure. You pass by it. You're like, I don't know, that looks so cute to sit down at. And so that's like first part. And then you can also use your love language for a hobby as well. I know there is some interesting science behind love languages, but if it works for you, then go ahead. Like words of affirmation is definitely my love language by a mile. And so I just enjoy reading and making sense of things and confirming beliefs, but also disproving them. I understand confirmation bias and all the variations of it. It's just, so words mean everything to me. So if you, if your love language is physical touch, be especially tactile when you research, when you read, I would recommend like a physical copy of a book, make annotations, just feel the pages, transform it with notes, take notes for notes' sake. You want to feel and be there, and there's like this tangible aspect that you need. So create tangible things while you also intake information, right? Or if your love language is quality time, make the time that you dedicate to this high quality. Just like set aside some time to research, fall in love, get to know them, right? And do stuff that you'd like to do. Like maybe there's like a crafting element with it. The thing is what's cool about annotating and on the art and craft of doing science, you could think of like note-taking and annotation as a form of scrapbooking. So if you like creating and you'd like to get into more technical stuff, but also feel like there's an element of expression, you could approach it like, scrapbooking, maybe not junk journaling, it's informational journaling, but it's like journaling, but more aesthetic. The contrast of aesthetic and then information dense, I feel like would be so, so cool. If your love language is gift giving, get the book, the research like it's a gift. Like think of the things that you've said you've always wanted to learn, you've always wanted to know, like even just something where you constantly keep going down this Wikipedia rabbit hole, and then search for the book very intentionally, as if you were going to buy a gift for someone, but this is a gift for yourself. And then when you write down the information, right, you do like summaries, you could be like, you're wrapping up understanding. And how to make it feel like a gift is like, you share that general understanding, that what you learned with someone else. This is a gift for you and a gift for them. It's something, so what you can put all of this through the lens of desire, and then you can start to want, right? Because, when you start to want, then you start to engage, and then you start to build the skill. Because like I've also said, researching and learning is a skill, right? Information is literally dense. My other tip was, if you're going to get into researching or reading as a hobby, is best to start at the grade level, the reading level where you started to do quote unquote not so good in school. Because the thing is, even if that's like 8th grade or 9th grade, that is nothing to be ashamed of, because I did not do well in like any part of high school. The thing is if you were to think of your brain as like it's coding, it's like a computer. If you were to fix the code that you just put in, right, that you could fix it. However, it would be it'd be like kind of it wouldn't be as transformative. If you were to go into the line of code where you initially started to notice that things weren't solving or like working out or like running, and you start to fix those definitions and those understandings of like, maybe they got distorted or maybe not entered right in like 8th grade, you're going to start entering code, and then you're going to see it start immediately trickling down. And the same thing will work with your brain, right? If you start to fix the code where you started to mess up, then everything is going to start streamlining a lot quicker than if you just go in and fix what you messed up yesterday. Do you know what I'm saying? So try to look for like reading level that, you didn't get as good of grades, just to get you kind of up to speed on like terminology and usage and like different types of, rhetorical devices and all this stuff. And that's another tip. Yeah. So those are, I just posted a Substack. I have a lot more tips, but that's if you want to like start falling in love with research. Because I have no doubt that you guys know generally how to read. So that I feel like that's not what people are asking me. I mean, there are definitely people who are like, how do I read for a long time or take in a lot of that information? And again, you should think of it as like going to the gym. And I'm not saying like I'm the most smarty, proficient reader there ever was. However, I have been reading nonstop. So it would be kind of like someone going to the gym nonstop for like 2 years. They are going to have like incredibly built, defined muscles, and you're going to see them and you're going to be like, I want to get to where you are. But the thing is you really, and you obviously can. I've got 10 years of extreme alcohol abuse under my belt. Anyone can pass me. That's not to degrade what I've accomplished, but I'm saying that like if you lift, quote unquote, enough, right, and you pace it and you accommodate yourself and you do modified exercises, maybe you listen to, audiobooks, right? You can get to this level, right? And you could have, a different types of muscles, like different types of like workout sets. And, eventually we will be able to spot each other mutually. And I would love to see you guys in the mental gym.
This week's episode of Shower Thoughts is sponsored by Mint Mobile. You know what doesn't belong in your epic summer plans? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. While you're planning beach trips, barbecues, and 3-day weekends, your wireless bill should be the last thing holding you back. That's why I made the switch to Mint Mobile. With Mint, you get the coverage and speed you're used to, but for way less money. And for a limited time, Mint Mobile is offering 3 months of unlimited premium wireless service for $15 a month. So while your friends are sweating over data overages and surprise charges, you'll be chilling, literally and financially. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of unlimited service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. I switched to Mint Mobile because my job is a content creator and I need fast data. I need data, access to data. Trying to upload a 2-minute video with the data plan I was paying for should not last me 10 minutes. And now it doesn't because I switched over to Mint Mobile. Love it. Streamlined, easy to use, fast. It's a lifesaver. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/shower. That's mintmobile.com/shower. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Anyway, so it's more to how to build desire to research if you put it through the lens of work. Again, this will not be fun. A lot of people, there was someone who commented on my Substack, I get the ick from reading, and the thing is, ick is disgust. Very low level of disgust. It's boredom. How is boredom disgust? Well, the thing is we're biologically wired to learn and grow. Literally, we're evolved to evolve with like neurogenesis, like I was talking about. So when it comes to boredom, right, there's something in your brain called the saliency network, which is like a whole bunch of different regions of the brain that assist in learning, right? Toggling between the default mode network and like basically like learning. And so, like taking in new information. And so to take in new information, it should be like novel, surprising, it should be humorous or creative or something like that. So, that makes the message salient, and so you retain it. And so if you're getting bored by something, it's kind of like the information is decaying, And so when it comes to disgust, that's emotional and visceral disgust is a emotional, cognitive, embodied reaction to disgust. It's a repelling away from. So boredom with a topic is kind of like the beginning stage of mental decomp. So like autolysis, So it's the information is kind of starting to decay. That doesn't mean the information is dead. It's just now starting to be repelling and you might be bored by it. Okay, so you need a little bit more surprise, right? That's why your therapist is always like, keep things spicy. There is, you do have to keep things, that doesn't mean like intimacy wise, but I'm saying, keep surprise alive, keep joking with each other, keep expressing with each other, creative expression, right? It's just necessary for growth. Growth is the opposite of decay, and you'll feel more, and since you're disgusted by this thing, usually ick is applied to someone else. And so if you get reverse ick, disgust is basically if it were a photo, it'd be like the negative of empathy, right? It repels away from, as opposed to empathy attracts. And so like you actually get like more connected to the thing, more invested in it. Will you see this topic as a human being and connect to it? Empathy. You know what? It could have a spiritual, transcendent sort of aspect, which could touch on empathy. Anyway, empathy for self, past and future. It's kind of like containing multitudes. Anyway, you're like, whoa. I just love research. I love the brain. Will I link everything? Well, actually, the Saliency Network, you can find that in Your Brain on Art by Susan Magsamen and Ivy Ross, which you guys should have picked up already. You're like, I didn't want to, but some of you did, and I appreciate it deeply. And I'm just talking out of my booty. Anyway, well, this is not out of my booty. This is Schauer Thoughts. So thank you guys for listening. I appreciate you deeply. Now, we're going to talk about trust. So we're going to start off with the so we're getting in the shower, guys. The neural correlates of trust, which I said that we were going to go over last time. I love neuroscience. Neuroscience is so fun. All right, we're going to read the abstract. Trust is a critical social process that helps us to cooperate with others and is present to some degree in all human interaction. However, the underlying brain mechanisms of conditional and unconditional trust and social reciprocal exchange are still obscure. Here, we used hyperfunctional magnetic resonance imaging, in which two strangers interacted online with one another in a sequential reciprocal trust game, while their brains were simultaneously scanned. By designing a non-anonymous, alternating multi-round game, trust became bidirectional, and we were able to quantify partnership building and maintenance. Using within and between brain analysis and examination of functional brain activity supports the hypothesis that the preferential activation of different neuronal systems implement these two trust strategies. We show that the paracingulate cortex is critically involved in building a trust relationship by inferring another person's intentions to predict subsequent behavior. This more recently evolved brain region can be differently engaged to interact with more primitive neural systems in maintaining conditional and unconditional trust in a partnership. Conditional trust selectively activated the ventral tegmental area, a region linked to the evaluation of expected and realized reward, whereas unconditional trust selectively activated the septal area, a region linked to social attachment behavior. The interplay of these neural systems supports reciprocal exchange that operates beyond the immediate spheres of kinship, one of the distinguishing features of the human species. You're like, that was a lot. Okay, so interesting enough, notice that a game, playful, right, was a great way to establish trust, non-anonymous. So you recognize that this is another human being, okay? Another human being playing a game to establish trust. And so the thing is, it says there's the underlying brain mechanisms of conditional, unconditional. Okay. So they said sorry, I'm like so excited to make a point that I'm about to make because this is really interesting if you look at the brain regions that they just highlighted. First one is, we show that the paracingulate cortex is critically involved in building a trust relationship by inferring another person's intentions to predict subsequent behavior. Now, you guys are like, what does the paracingulate cortex do? And I would love to tell you. And ladies, you're about to be vindicated like none other. Now, trust is reciprocal exchange. Yes. And exchange includes work and sentimental value exchange. Okay. And then so sentimental value and work value together is worth. And now the thing is why I did emphasize using ratios and understanding like ratios and converting meters to feet in this way is that work value, we will have to put it through a sort of capitalism lens because the thing is that is the measurement that most people's brains are currently using. It's kind of just like feet at this point. Like if I'm talking to Americans and I'm like, suddenly I switch over to meters. sure, a lot of you could, like, you understand what I'm getting at, but like to keep it so we all understand the unit of measure for work value, we will be using the capitalist system, production and that sort of thing. And that's not to say that that's the end all be all. Why you just use a ratio is so you can translate, what this is worth in terms of sentimental value versus like actual work value. And I know some of you are going to be like, well, you can't quantify monetarily the value of a human life. And that is so true. However, you can't do it on a mass scale. You can do it individually if you understand your own sentimental value and what the value of something that you do or a task that you're willing to perform. Like, for example, I would not say that universally having sex with a man is worth $1 million. But as a lesbian, right, I've pretty much established some principles. Now, if a man were to be like, would you violate a principle, which I assume you've appraised with sentimental eyes, what it means to you emotionally, lovingly, all this stuff, would you abandon that to have sex with me for $1 million? Sex work is a type of work, right? It's a service being performed. So yeah, you cannot monetarily quantify the overall value of a human life, but you can individually say, will I abandon some things for this price? And so it's very much an individual conversation. Would I have sex with a man for $1 million? No, it's not worth it at this point. I would rather be shot. All right, so back to the paracingulate cortex. We're going to move on to another article, guys. Okay, let me open that. Come on, when the thing is not opening. Okay, the paracingulate cortex. So we show that the paracingulate cortex is critically involved in building a trust relationship by inferring another person's intentions to predict subsequent behavior. So this article, which will be linked below, is by PubMed Central, revisiting the morphology and classification of the paracingulate gyrus with commentaries on ambiguous cases. I will just be reading the first sentence, though. The anterior cingulate cortex is considered to play a crucial role in cognitive and affective regulation. So, to build a trusting relationship, right? The paracingulate cortex is critically involved. The paracingulate cortex plays a crucial role in cognitive and affective regulation. Now, cognitive functions in this area includes theory of mind, social interaction, and cognitive load. Now, cognitive division of labor. What are we talking about? This is the thing I feel like there's so many women just cheering. I can't hear you, but I know you're screaming. So cognitive labor, aka division of it's cognitive load, aka division of cognitive labor, managing household and family, planning, organizing, scheduling, and problem solving. So if someone says, write a list of things I need to do and I'll do them for you, your partner is literally making you think for them. Now, the thing is it's one thing if they're like, write a list of things that you need to do that are not regular occurrences because you can't predict, it's like, oh, the car muffler just fell off. That's like not something that happens regularly. But if your partner needs you to write out the chores for each week, they're the same chores. You guys don't switch off. They're actually literally making you think for them, okay? And the ability to trust them is actually compromised, okay? Let's move on to affective regulation. So affective regulation refers to the ability to manage and respond to emotional experiences effectively. In psychodynamic therapy, helping clients develop skills for regulating their emotions is crucial for addressing trauma and distress. So, if you regulate your partner's emotions consistently, you are doing what therapists literally do. You are their coach. If you do this for a prolonged period of time, it's kind of like training a, quote, employee who's likely also bossing you around in this context for the entire time you've been working together, right? If you were to hire someone and you need to train them consistently and you need to give them, oh, good job. You send an email. Also, I need you to send your emails. These are the emails that you need to do each week, right? You are cognitively, literally, their boss and their therapist, okay? And if this person is bossing you around and they're lashing out and hurting in some way or draining their therapist not paying them, right? This is not a trusting relationship, okay? If you have to consistently, in this regard, when it comes to cognitive load, think for your partner, or you have to regulate their emotions, then trust cannot be built like that. It really can't, okay? So you guys can build those skills together. However, if you take on the majority of the task, you do it all the time. And the thing is thankfully, when it comes to more invisible labor or like repetitive maintenance tasks, is that they're high frequency, and that will get back into nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Because the thing is when it comes to interval and ratio, you need adequate like intervals. Like you need predictable intervals between each task. So the thing is, if someone is asking you to do just one more thing, and you don't allow for like a consistent interval, they are taking advantage of you. Now, where they usually get away with it is because they're like, oh, it's just one more thing. And they expect you to like, not consider all things done before. However, you can also, I'll get to it. I actually did write an entire like, fuck you moment. Anyway, so if you're taking on a majority of the cognitive load and affective regulation, then trusting relationship cannot be established in the brain. Or literally, you cannot trust them to do their job or regulate themselves. You are taking on that work. So we need to correct that. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So if your spouse, makes you like is constantly messing something up that's like routine, they truly are just lazy. Now, I can prove that with statistics. So humans are biologically wired to learn, like I said. Refusing to learn can be assessed with error analysis, and that's where you get into intentionality, right? Okay, yeah. Involved in building a trusting relationship by inferring another person's intentions. So if you'd like to do some error analysis for intentions, here we go. All right. So truly random observational errors cannot be predictable. For something to be a genuine mistake in your relationship, you cannot predict that it's going to happen. If someone trips and falls and they dropped, red wine and it's, oh God, that really was a mistake. Look back, how often have they done that? There's also some people who are genuinely clumsy. And at that point, I feel like there would be a discussion beforehand. So it's not spiteful, like there may be some coordination issues. However, when it comes to performing a complex task, like loading the dishwasher, okay? You're like, that's not complex. In terms of like what's all happening in the body, sure. But like it's complex, but it's not like so much a lot of energy being used. Anyway, so you cannot predict a truly random observational error. So if you know that this person is going to fuck up what you just told them, even though you gave them explicit directions, right? Then that is no longer a mistake. That is a choice. We are also biologically wired to learn. If they are refusing to learn, then that is them counteracting you, right? Okay? So now you see where their intentions lie. And they intend to use you for labor, right? If they refuse to learn, which they're biologically wired to do, right? You want to talk about biologically wired to reproduce. I don't know about, okay. But biologically wired to learn. They're refusing to learn, and they're doing it consistently. They're actually devolving a little bit, and their intention is to use you for labor, right? And the thing is to establish a two-way connection with someone, you need desires, intentions, and beliefs to be somewhat aligned, right? They got to be within the same general area. So their intention is to use you for labor, right? Make sure that you never ask them to do this thing again. They desire to be taken care of, right? And they believe that you should take care of them because they feel like they're allowed to ask this of you. So this is not a two-way connection. This is not collaboration. This is someone using you as a resource, okay? So trust, you need desires, intentions, and beliefs to be aligned, okay? So let's revisit. The paracingulate cortex is critically involved in building a trust relationship by inferring another person's intentions to predict subsequent behavior. We can do it through cognitive division of labor. We can do it through affective AFF, not EFF, regulation. We can also do error analysis. Their paracingulate cortex, if it's not intentionally damaged by like maybe some sort of trauma, like I would ask them like if there's any possibility of concussions or anything like that, but then that would be like a very, very specific case, right? This is not working, right? The cortex is offline. It's going to be hard, damn near impossible to build a trusting relationship with them. I'm also going to go through a lot more things. So, this is another article. Everything will be linked below. All right. Trust me, social games are better than social icebreakers in building trust. So, interpersonal, let me open this. Why do I keep reading before? This is from ResearchGate. I love them. They just got some jackass asshole uploaded everything from ResearchGate into like AI. And I was like, you fuckers. Okay. Trust me, social games are better than social icebreakers at building trust. Interpersonal trust is one of the key components of efficient teamwork, collaboration, right? Connection. Research suggests two main approaches for trust formation: personal information exchange, like social icebreakers, and creating a context of risk and interdependence, like trust falls. However, because these strategies are difficult to implement in an online setting, because they were talking about an online study, trust is more difficult to achieve and preserve in distributed teams when they were talking about over the internet. Okay. In this paper, we argue that games are an optimal environment for trust formation because they can simulate both risk and interdependence. Results of our online experiments show that a social game can be more effective than a social task at fostering interpersonal trust. Furthermore, trust formation through the game is reliable, and trust depends on several contingencies in the social task. Our work suggests that gameplay interactions do not merely promote impoverished versions of the rich ties formed through conversation, but rather engender genuine social bonds. Okay? Okay. So, let's read this again. A social game can be more effective than a social task. Game is play. That's what they mean here, right? Play. If you want to soccer, right, can be fun. It can be playful. However, it does follow structured rules, you know? And so play in this case is expression, right? Like how are we expressing and working and riffing off each other, right? So I talked a while back about, you know, being playful and like banter with someone. How do you know the difference between ridicule and banter is respect, right? If someone is ridiculing you about something, right? Like, you know, information exchange. My brother is dead, right? And someone knows that and they have not been like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, is there anything I need, like I can do to support you? Or like, if you want to talk about it, like I just, you know, lend an ear, right? That is hearing the information and greeting it with respect, okay? And you do it on your own accord. You do it without being prompted. And you do it kind of consistently. Hey, just checking in, or like, you know, you talk about your brother and you're like, you know, how like you're mindful of like how did your brother like to, you know, do certain things just to make sure, because thoughtful, careful, like caring means thinking of, like like careless is thoughtless, right? So you think of them, you care enough. Oh, I'm talking about my brother. How would your brother, you know, have gone about this in the situation? What do you love about him, right? If they know this information and they respect it on their own accord consistently, if they maybe make a dead brother joke at you a couple times, right? That is now banter. That is qualifying as banter. You are riffing because established connection has, like, respect has been established. Connection has been established, you know? You genuinely care. You are empathizing. Empathizing is connection. However, if it's not banter, if you know, you tell someone that your brother is dead and they make a joke about it, like I don't know, like was he just as stacked as you or whatever? That is straight up ridicule. And now the thing is why I emphasize that is because, you know, it is totally fine to banter with friends, to riff with friends, to be witty with friends, right? Because that is expression. It is playful. However,
If you want to play with your partner, it is like mutual pranking or mutual banter, then that is great, as long as respect and connection has been established. If you want to play with your partner, right? And you want to start to banter and they just go low, right? Or they make fun of something that you've explicitly stated that this is not something I feel comfortable joking about ever. And they're like, oh, come on, it's just a joke. That is not shared connection. They cannot express with you. If they cannot be playful, right? And trust that they're going to stay within your boundaries, right? They're not reliable. This, again, is not a trusting connection. There is no connection. They are not empathizing with you. If you explicitly stated, I do not want to joke about this, but you love joking, okay, then again, if trust has not been established, and it's going to be hard, because the thing is when it comes to, a social game, right, which is controlled risk, right? We're making risky jokes. However, it is controlled. That's more, you trust this person, oh, you're joking about my dead brother. I'm joking about the fact that you had braces until you were 25. That is controlled risk. There are boundaries, there is structure, there is rules. You guys are still expressing yourself. So when it comes to a social task, which is kind of another way to establish trust, however, trust depends on several contingencies in the social task, right? So task is now work, okay? And contingencies are, I did write the definition of contingent trust. So legal people, you're like, oh, hell yeah. So contingencies are conditions, okay? So there's a lot of working conditions to this trust building exercise. And if you have not laid out all conditions explicitly, and there is already a cognitive division of labor and ability to perform task is kind of compromised, this is probably not going to be the trust building task that you'd like. You don't want to go task route. You probably want to go play route. Okay. So we're going to get into the definition of contingent trust. Now, this is a legal term. I am switching from neuroscience to legal, but the structure of contingent trust is more outlined by the legal system. It's not to say that you have to, I give a massive shit about if you guys follow the laws. It's just the underlying structure, and then you can put your own spin on it. Hence why I always like to reframe, give it some structure. But like when it comes to the art that you put on the frame, within the frame, how, your culture, like how you incorporated it, like then that's all up to you, right? I'm just giving you the supports, and the legal system has kind of given structure to this. All right, so a contingent trust is a special kind of trust that can only be created if certain conditions are met. This means that someone has to follow specific instructions in their will for the trust to be set up. The instructions will say which assets should go into the trust, who the beneficiaries are, and what the conditions are for the trust to be created. By using a contingent trust, the person can control how their assets are distributed and avoid some of the costs of probate. People usually create a contingent trust for their kids or someone who is unable to take care of themselves, okay? This way, a trustee can make sure that the beneficiaries use the assets according to the person's wishes instead of what a court-appointed guardian decides. Now, the thing is when it comes to a task, right, you would really, contingent trust, you need a lot of specifications if this person is a dependent, okay? And you're trying to give something, or you're taking care of this person. So it is interesting if you were to kind of set up that parallel between the two trusting adults, right? I mean, yes, adults obviously can be children of people, and they can also be need caretakers. However, in this case, it's you actually taking care of the other person, being their therapist, being their boss. You really should not go this route. And if you will, you need very, very, very explicit instructions, and you actually should not repeat them. They should just, okay, yeah. So what is needed for trust with this structure is specific instructions, directions, specifications, requirements. And I would strongly recommend, if you're going to go this route with a social task for a trust building exercise, again, everything will be, if you're going to go the work route to build trust, I really, really would strongly encourage you write a personal constitution. This is the laws, principles things that you personally follow. Now, it's there. I am drawing a whole bunch of parallels to things, lining up some shots. And I want you to listen to this. Okay, so a personal constitution is a framework of guiding principles, values, and goals that individuals establish for themselves to navigate life and make decisions. Now, if you come from a collectivist culture or you genuinely, truly share equal responsibility, emotion, cognitive load with this person, I would probably take a co-constitution route, which is an informal term, but you guys write a shared constitution together. Like, these are both laws, beliefs, principles that you both equally abide by together. If not, I would go for an individual constitution, okay? Again, everything will be linked. So I do have a fun exercise. This is linked. You guys should do this. Create your own personal constitution, a blueprint for living your best life. The reason to write one, it clarifies your values. You're forced to think deeply about what really matters to you. So again, personal constitution will cover sentimental values and work-related values. So sentimental values are going to be like love, connection, trust, and all this stuff. And then work-related values is like the tangible, hard and fast, who vacuums, what appointments do I have, or like what things are going to be predictably showing up in the future, like if there's something that you need to write in, okay? So it clarifies your values. It guides decision-making. When faced with tough choices, you can refer back to your constitution to see if there's a potential decision aligns with your values. It keeps you accountable. It helps you grow. It reduces stress, right? Keeps you accountable. Having your principles written down makes it harder to ignore them. Yes. And also, it helps you grow as you revise your constitution. You make like amendments. You're like, okay, that boundary that I put up no longer actually serves me. And so I'm going to amend my personal constitution, allow some more flexibility with how I interact with people. But that's only like, and so you're like, this is a lot for trust. The thing is like I said with the beginning, you need self and you need to appraise what it is and the boundaries of it. Now, the boundaries kind of confine, they don't confine, they define identity, right? Like, I identify as these things, right? I'm a lesbian, I'm autistic, and I honestly kind of love identifying as an alcoholic because this is awful in society's eyes, but it's not very respectable. However, my hobby is research, and that is in society's eyes respectable. It's not to say like, oh, that's correct, but it's like interesting telling someone I'm an alcoholic and then following it up with research because you can see them immediately zoom. Like they were like, I don't respect. They're like slowed down in time because their brain can't do the mental math of they want to say something disrespectful. They want to shame me, but also they don't know if they can because I might be smarter than them. So it's kind of a fun. But anyway, your boundaries kind of define your characteristics, like who you are, what you identify with, okay? And so, it reduces stress. I'm going to keep going. This might be just a long episode. Why personal boundaries are important and how to develop them. Okay. All of this will be linked. And the thing is this could be a trust building exercise with you guys. I keep saying that all of the sources will be linked. I want you to check if all of the sources are linked. And I want you to read sure and make sure that I am communicating effectively, efficiently, that you understand clearly what is happening, right? Because I like that you like me, right? And I think that's nice that you trust me. But also trust requires truth, right? What you know to be true. And then also proof, which has a contextual nature. So that means that you need to base it in something in like reality and the principles of reality. So I would just, truth and proof. Check the proof so you can believe the truth. Okay. Oh my God. I've got to write poems. I do write poems. All right. So, So you establish boundaries, not to box yourself in, but to kind of know where you begin and end. And the thing is you can transcend boundaries. People are like, how do you transcend boundaries? Would you not extend into other people? Well, now see, you're thinking walking boundaries. You're thinking walking across the land. What is also kind of included in boundaries when you appraise land is airspace. Yeah. Or if there's a body of water nearby, right? You're thinking, how do I expand? How do I transform? How do I transcend the boundaries? Well, honey, build up. Grow. I'm sorry. I had to. Your art, the thing is your your boundaries are the frame. Your art is going up, right? It's going on top of the canvas, the airspace above, right? And the thing is air is not, I was going to say, it's like less constrained, expression, less constrained. It's free flowing, it's movement, right? The soil, that we were talking about is firm. Boundaries are firm, precise, exact, okay? You establish those and then fly, get a tire swing, have fun, build trust with your partner in the backyard and let them push you and not push you off. Okay, so yeah. So we're going to why you should build boundaries. Yeah, you understand frame and building up, airspace. There we are. Your life and expression is like the art within the frame. Fuck, I already said this. I'm not saying fuck, like, I literally just, I'm repeating myself. So yeah, like I said in the previous videos, this is going to circle back now to how the brain indexes abstract thought. You're like, this is a lot. Your constitution, right, is your written principles. They're the laws. I mean, they're grounded in reality and experience. It's, but now they're, something you abide by. Write them down. What I'm trying to say is write them down. Okay. So, the brain needs 3 things to index abstract thought. The first dimension is a direction, right? It corresponds to the regions associated with language, which means you need the label. Example, rules, morals. So, when it comes to writing your boundaries, how your brain indexes abstract thought is literally how you get a solid, firm boundary and understanding. When you label it, nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. Label it first, okay? Write down the constitution. Here is first, second, third, right? So first dimension is the label, belonging, right? How the label of belonging. The next one could be respect, safety, acceptance, friendship, harmony, trust, commitment, fairness, right? Those are all your labels. Those are all the prompts that you need to now establish boundaries, okay? So the second dimension of what your brain needs to index abstract thought, it defines abstract concepts in terms of reference, either to self or external source, okay? Example, spirituality is internal, okay? And it refers to self, okay? Causality is external, right? It is outside. It's external to self, okay? So, spirituality is your beliefs, right? What you believe to be correct and true for yourself, okay? Belonging, what do you believe about belonging? Respect, what do you believe about respect? And remember, it's inside, right? You can also show respect, right? We'll get to that. So then the third dimension, rooted in social constructs. Okay, this is how you index abstract thought to make it make logical sense, right? And so you follow this pattern, okay? So third dimension, rooted in social constructs, it's inherent social component to the concepts of pride or joy, right? Okay? So what does belonging mean in relation to self, to you? And then what does it mean according to society? Now, this is why I emphasized 2 different units of measure, okay? You want to be able to translate what belonging means to you to what it means in society, right? You need to label it. Also, you have the label. You have, and this is what's cool. I'm going to briefly get into symbolic logic. Symbolic logic works the exact same way. When I tell you, this is how you solidify something in your brain, okay? These are the things you want to solidify in your brain. Belonging with the label. What it means to you, is it internal or external? And then what it means to society. Now, you could do what it means to you, the definition, and then what it means to society, literal definition, okay? So, you have the word, how you interpret it, what it means in society. That is going to sear its way into your brain, right? Do that for belonging. You do that for respect, safety, acceptance, friendship, harmony, trust, commitment, fairness, structure, joy, financial stability, success, and community. This is going to be linked below, right? When you do that for each one of these, right, you're going to create a rock solid and like structure in your brain. So when someone gives you an argument, you put it exactly through this structure. And so you produce metalogical consideration. That means that you can reflect on it, you can internalize it, you understand the nuances of it, and you can respond appropriately, right? Rationally, okay? And if they can't understand you, tough shit, okay? So here's the thing. This is the exact same setup for symbolic logic. Now, I'm going to lose a lot of you, and it's totally fine if you disappear for a second. Okay. Symbolic logic is obviously indexes abstract thought. I'm going to show you that it's the exact same way, right? How to code your constitution, which includes trust. In symbolic logic, you have the ordinary argument that goes in to write the structure. What appears first is symbolic language, which is the label, right? You got the label. That is how your brain is working too. And then it splits off, equally leads to both of these, right? Truth and validity, okay? Which is independent of proof, which means truth is relevant to like internal, external, like reference to self, okay? Symbolic logic and your brain, again, they are indexing it in the same way. So this is logical, and then this is like coding in your brain. This is the code, and then this is your brain doing the code. Now, so it splits off first to truth and validity, and then it splits off to proof and validity. Now, what makes proof different from truth is that proof has a contextual nature, right? And if it has a contextual nature, how does your brain index abstract thought? Social context, right? And then they reconvene at metalogical consideration. If you want to code this in your fucking brain, right? I need you to label, like I said, nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. Nominal, you start with belonging, respect, safety, acceptance, friendship, harmony, trust, commitment, fairness, structure, joy, financial stability, success, community. Now, you translate that to your truth first. It's a reference to self. I said measure with in third person, walk the perimeter. What that means, internal, external, okay? What does belonging mean to you, okay? Then you give beneath it the actual definition given by society, right? So when you contrast those, you now have a nuanced understanding of this, right? And you can understand that if it makes sense, it's true to me, versus I can prove it, right? However, the thing is, with proof, you need truth, okay? Okay. So when it comes to proof and validity by the proof methods implies logical validity for the ordinary arguments that are symbolically represented. Truth and validity is arguments we care about, we give a fuck about, we think about. So again, truth and validity, internal, external, in regards to self, right? Things that we care about, things that we think about, things that we feel, that is going to involve self. And then proof and validity, ordinary arguments, ordinary, everyday, contextually dependent arguments, what it means in society. When you understand this, I'm saying to you literally how to code your brain right now. I'm literally telling you how to structure a logical, symbolic logic argument, how to code your brain. how to build a constitution. I don't think Rebecca, are you appreciating this?
Yes, I'm appreciating. This is wild.
All right. Again, everything will be linked. I will include all of the step-by-step things, the sentimental values you need to encode in your constitution. All right. Also, by the way, I talked about like last episode that your parents didn't just not show you love. They didn't show you trust. They didn't show you belonging. They didn't show you respect. They didn't show you safety. They didn't show you acceptance. They didn't show you friendship. They didn't show you harmony. They didn't show you trust. They didn't show you commitment. They didn't show you fairness, structure, joy, financial stability, success, or community. So, like I said in the way beginning of this episode, you want to fix some code fast. You go where you started to get quote unquote bad grades. Your parents are not accredited teachers, okay? So you started getting bad grades in these things, quote unquote bad grades in these things, very early on. You intentionally code all of these things, and you're going to see the system start to run a lot quicker. Now, the key to learning is repetition, okay? You really got to repeat these lessons and you got to perform these, right? To build a skill of trust, right? Trust exercises, like it involves your words matching your actions, right? When you write a constitution, if the people who did not write the constitution, if the people who wrote the constitution do not abide by it, they are tyrants, okay? That is not democratic. They decide unilaterally. They are the ultimate type of oppressor. So, if you do not want to recreate the oppressive systems at B, if you do not want to recreate the tyranny that your parents put you through, when you write down your constitution, when you review exactly the code and what they mean to you, and also you can update code, right? You can amendments, right? This is now what it means for me, and then reference to self, and then also like the actual textbook definition, right? You follow your own constitution. Make it initially very general. Like the Constitution started off with, we're all created equal. That was a lie because women and people of color, right? But you keep it general, you know, but it's specific enough, but kind of general, right? Because it's like, I want to make, just the golden rule could fill in the blank for a lot of these. Do unto others as they would do unto you. No. Anyway. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry that I repeated that. That's just a long list. Okay. Now, again, since you are socialized in an incredibly individualistic capitalist society, you may be tempted to purely define all of those things through the lens of work. Remember, what does belonging mean? And you're going to put it through a work scenario. Feeling like I'm part of the office culture, right? You know, or like respect, like you do a task for me, I do a task for you. No, respect, you know what I mean? Like I just said, like what's the difference between, you know, ridicule and banter? Like respect, edit it to make it, I mean, if you must, right? Put it in sentimental terms and then put it in work terms. Now, I mean, that's, you know, the contextual nature is most likely going to already be in work terms, like what safety means in a work context, you know, just like, you know, general precautions and that sort of thing. Yes. So relation to you, the sentimental aspect of it, and then in a contextual nature. Okay. Now, if you'll notice, there's dimensions to this. When it's said, it encodes this, right, in your brain. The first dimension is the label, the representation. Now, dimension is direction, okay? The second dimension is the external, internal, like, you know, relation to self. That is another direction. What happens when you add another dimension to something that is 2D, right? This is 3D, okay? Life, right? So when you're encoding this, you literally need the playful aspect and the work aspect, right? For it to be fully encoded in this system, you need the label as it corresponds equally to work and play. Play, I guess, expression, sentimental value, okay? And then work value, monetarily quantified, and this is the larger context, right? And then you can also always update these, though. Oh, guys, this was so fun. Anyway, so I'm going to read my closing arguments. This is a long-ass episode. With trust, you should be able to say and back up with verifiable proof that my needs are equal to your needs. That's a quote by Rhonda Britton. To establish trust, to check if trust is equal in this relationship, you should be able to say with full confidence, full knowing, if you need to refer back to your sentimental value constitution, that includes also your work value constitution, how you're encoding your logical thoughts, how you're literally indexing abstract thought, right? The thing is, everything in the brain is linked. So like these concepts are immediately linked to each other, okay? If you cannot say with proof, my needs are equal to your needs, which is true internally, and it's been established, there is proof, which means it's repeatable, right? In order for something to be a law, a principle, it needs to be repeatable, okay? Yes? Now, these are the needs for trust within a relationship. They are not wants, okay? Now, the thing is, again, putting it through the lens of work and the larger contextual system, which is capitalism. Belonging, respect, safety, acceptance, friendship, harmony, trust, commitment, fairness, structure, joy, financial stability, success, community. Those are basic needs for this relationship, okay? There also is a want element, desire, and that goes beyond. It builds off of. All right. These are the needs to establish a relationship, okay? If you cannot say and back up with proof, my needs equal your needs, then they do not, then this other person has not even met the basic structural frame requirements for a relationship. And I will get into what is now happening. Relationships are about transcendence, creation. Love emerges from the canvas, okay? However, love and expression cannot emerge from the canvas if the canvas itself, the need, right, is deteriorating, right? Okay? If they cannot satisfy all these conditions in work terms, right? And there obviously should be some flexibility when it comes to disability, right? Especially in the realm of financial stability, okay? Or when it comes to success, you need a very flexible, understanding, decolonized approach, anti-capitalist approach. However, again, we need to plug this into a capitalist system because that is the system, the context that we are working in, right? If you kind of don't code that part, then a lot of your brain will not code this. Okay, so yeah. So, you cannot express, create love, art with this person. Trust, right? Like trust the process. You cannot trust the process with this person if they are degrading the quality of the actual structure, the frame, okay? So now you're in, sorry, this is a very long episode. You're now in a phase called maintaining a degradation, okay? With maintained degradation, it can be planned, but why would you plan on your relationship degrading, right? Unless someone else may have planned on your relationship degrading, right? If the structure keeps degrading and you feel like you're just using all your energy to maintain, I have no supports. I'm just trying to maintain the structure of the integrity of our relationship. I can't even paint a fucking rainbow, right? So if someone is not contributing, they are maintaining degradation of the structure, okay? Degradation can be planned, and it's called planned deterioration. And when you deteriorate something in a planned, controlled manner, it's because you want to prevent acceleration, growth, right? Okay? You plan on this degrading, deteriorating. It's a, self-sabotaging, right? Like it's a control move, right? I'm going to suck the resources out of you. And then you're going to keep pouring in and you're going to be like, why can't Why does the fucking frame who keeps taking the bottom of the frame? You're not going to want to paint. You're not going to want to create. If someone keeps disassembling this, right, they're preventing you from accelerating, growing forward, okay? So there's also mitigation strategies for maintaining degradation. There's maintenance. Regular maintenance activities slow the rate of degradation or repair minor issues to prevent them from becoming major problems. Now, what that could translate to in a relationship is someone gets you a nice little gift after they've completely neglected all the actual structural issues, right? It's the relationship equivalent of a pizza party. Well, I want health insurance, right? I want to feel like I can take care of myself, and you just showed up to like with a pizza party. In your relationship, you can also see that, right? Like you're trying to do a little bit of maintenance. You do like a small win, right? Oh, guys, here's like I got you a flower at the store after you said for years you wanted flowers. It's a tiny, minor thing of maintenance, right? It's part of maintaining degradation. So they are maintaining they're degrading you. Okay. There's also monitoring, tracking indicators of degradation. The human equivalent would be, why don't you take care of yourself anymore, right? You're noticing, the quality is degrading, right? Oh, she's not as pretty as she was. Okay, yep. So again, you are a product, a resource to be consumed and eventually degrade and then stripped of all the life. Redundancy, the state of being not or no longer needed or useful. So if they've stripped you of all your resources, they move on to the next person, right? They've declared you redundant. A lot of people ask, how come my partner told me that they love me and they're obsessed with me, and then they broke up with me and then married the next person, right? We were together 10 years and then they married the very next person. Because they're a parasite, and I mean that very intentionally. So parasites, para, right, means feeding off of. So if this person saw you as a resource to be drained, right, and they're parasitic, they're draining of everything they could over those years, right? And what happens when a parasite detaches and moves on to someone else? They're ready to mate, okay? Of course, they're going to propose to the next person they met because they're full on you. They suck the absolute life out of you, right? And now they're moving on to someone else who they're going to mate with and create kids with. They're going to marry. They're going to do everything. They themselves did not have the strength without fueling up on you. And then they moved on to someone else. Now, it is different. I'm not saying that anyone who is dependent on another person is parasitic. No, that, like taking care of someone or like that could be, it's most likely symbiotic, right? Like it's equal, trusting, mutual, reliable exchange, adjusted, accommodating, right? If someone is just feeding and sucking off of you, that is parasitic. Now, if it's mutual exchange, symbiotic, caretakers do get paid. They do get hours. Right? They do have boundaries and rules, and respect is established. Yeah, so that's symbiotic. That is much different. If someone is draining you, you can trust that they're going to drain you. That's the only thing. I trust that they're reliably using me. All right. Oh my God. I literally wrote so much more. We may have to do a part 3. Anyway, so that's the setup. Let me make a, okay. This is part 3. Anyway. I might just do like a part 3 that is the first half of the episode, and then the second half is just fun trust exercises, right? This was a lot, guys. I really want you to be able to build trust. And the thing is to build a secure connection, you need to know exactly what your principles are, what you stand for, establish reliability. You trust someone, they're a credible source, right? Credible, reliable, trustworthy, which means words match actions. You don't want to be a tyrant, right? Who just makes the rules and doesn't follow them. You don't want to be like your parents. You want to break the cycle. I know you do. I know you mother freaking do. Okay. And I want you to, right? I want you to, even if you don't feel like it, I want you to run through all of these sources, because this is a trust building exercise. While it may be a little bit parasocial, because, but I want you to see why I'm telling you to check the resources is not because I doubt myself or what I am saying. It's because this is what you should get out of a relationship, okay? When you like tell someone something that you want them to be able to check, Not just because it's not about me. I'm not hurt that you guys are checking the resources. I want you to do it because I care about your safety, okay? I care about the information that you are taking in to your brain, right? I am talking a lot about a lot of reparenting, behavioral, mental health, literally neuroscience. I'm an alcoholic, right? I don't doubt what I'm saying, but I also give a fuck that you guys protect your own safety, right? And then this is a way to show you all. Okay. I want you all to belong here, right? Like you're not stupid enough. You can learn, right? I respect you guys. I respect you enough to link all the fucking resources. And I respect you enough I respect you enough to not lie. I want you to be safe because this is the age of misinformation, and this is literally stuff that you're going to factor into your brain. I want you to accept it. The thing is accepting of truth, and you need proof, okay? I'm trying to establish what trust should look like. It's not about my fucking feelings. Oh, you don't trust me? This is a mutual parasocial, which is feeding off of one. So it's really a social connection, I want to show you friendship because friends care about other people's mental health. I think about a lot of this stuff. Careless means thoughtless. I care enough to put it there because I want you to think about it. And I want to give you something to think about. Harmony, symbiotic, harmonious relationship, not parasitic. I don't want to feed off of you and your validation. And I don't want you to feed off of me and then, something may be wrong, right? Commitment, I'm committing to learning. That's why I don't use AI. Fairness, I am autistic. Fairness, the thing is, to establish fair rules, everyone needs to know the rules. Everyone needs to know the rules that I'm going by, okay? And I need to know the rules that you're going by. Structure, love structure, the frame, okay? Joy, transcendence, desire, okay? The art. I value the arts. I value your art. I've said it before. Financial stability. It's a bit convoluted at that point, but you guys do financially support me, and I want to reinvest in you, right? I share my learning. I put it into layman's terms because I want you to be able to apply it and grow and learn for yourself, right? We're mutually investing in other. Success, I want you to be successful. I want each and every one of you to be successful in whatever the hell way you define it, right? Okay? And community. Community is life, okay? I've told you guys a million times, I don't like individualistic emotions, collectivist emotions. The fact that I even said third person perspective is because I want to account for community. If part of you, extension of self is community, is land, for maybe your culture, right? I give a shit that you guys have community because you guys are my community, the internet community. And we will have to do a part 3, and this has gone long enough, okay? It's not about me when you check these resources. It's about you because I give a shit about all of that, and that's exactly what you should get out of every single relationship you have. You shouldn't, if you are questioning, you should be able to know exactly where to look, right? All right, we gotta fucking do part 3. I'm gonna bring it all together. Self and just normal communal trust. This is the communal shower. You gotta be able to trust people when you're raw and exposed like this in the shower, guys. God, that one was unplanned. But thank you so much for listening. This has been Shower Thoughts. I trust you guys as artists. Here's the proposed frame. Again, you don't have to shop for frames at Michael's. However, this is just a strong suggestion. All right, I will talk to you guys next Wednesday. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to rate me 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any place you get your podcasts. Follow me on Instagram because I do run through all of these. Sarah Schauer, and I also just am now starting to post on Substack, Sarah Schauer. But thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully you have a great week.